What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in at the Bridge to Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Big Mike. I was born and raised in the city of San Francisco, and I have such a love and appreciation for the Bay Area. This podcast is going to shine a light on some of the Bay's finest athletes, entrepreneurs, and artists. We're going to hear the stories of their journeys to success, struggles they've overcome, and get to know them on a personal level. On this episode, we talked to Gianna and Jacqueline Toboni. From Gianna's unbelievable stories as vice correspondent to Jackie's rise to stardom on the talented cast of Showtime's The L Word, these two women are nothing short of incredible. Both are heavily involved in their communities and take on social issues head first. We're truly pumped to have them on the show and hope you enjoy it as much as we do.
What up, Gianna and Jackie? In the words of my great brother, we are truly pumped to have you on the show. What a treat for the Bridge to Bridge fan base, growing every day. We just so happen to know you as family friends. You guys are just doing an amazing job, both out of the Bay Area and beyond. So proud of you guys and blessed to have you on the show.
No, it's an honor for us to be here. We love what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I second that for sure. Very happy to be here.
You know, before we dive in, what's been up with you guys? I know times are a little crazy with COVID. Can you give us a scoop on some things that you guys are working on right now?
Well, Jack just got back.
Yeah, Gianna, you want to start?
You want to talk?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we were supposed to start in July, and then things obviously got pushed back. So we just started a few weeks ago, and it's been, really different. One of the best parts about having a set is that it brings together like so many different people, and you get to interact and learn from people from really different backgrounds. And unfortunately, it's not as easy now because you're having to separate into different zones and everyone's wearing a mask and a shield. So it's been interesting, but I feel really safe and, feel very protected. And so I think that's the most important thing.
For us, we're traveling, we're doing interviews, we're starting to shoot for Showtime season 2. Yeah, it's hard to make R-type documentaries if you're not on the road traveling and doing interviews. So we made the decision that we're doing it. We have pretty thorough risk assessments, making sure to keep a good distance from people. But now is a time where our work can't really slow down. There's so much crazy stuff happening in the world. So we feel that it's important that we keep doing it.
Are people being super strict about protocol within your organizations?
It's interesting for us because our head of security went from focusing on places like Somalia and Iraq, this is how you stay safe there, to coming stateside and really having to educate himself on how to put together thorough risk assessments for COVID. It's a totally different threat, but lands in the same department. For me, though, my fear is that we bring it to someone we're interviewing. Here's this person who's taking time to help us with our work and share their story. And the worst thing would be if we gave it to them. But thankfully that hasn't happened. I think in large part due to the, precautions that were taken.
It's such a weird time. You got to be really careful because it's very easy to transmit. And, I can't imagine, how serious it is on set or doing interviews. Mm-hmm. So Jack, I'd read earlier in your career that you had studied at quite a few theater programs. Were there any in particular that really helped you understand your true potential?
Yeah, it's interesting. I went to the University of Michigan and I went with not a lot of acting experience or theater experience, which is I'd only done 1 or 2 plays. And I think it was kind of an asset because I didn't come in with any bad habits. But I think with anybody going to college, it's as much about the personal development as it is the education you're getting. So I really felt like that program shaped who I was as an actor and a person. So I'm really thankful for that education. And then I spent a summer in London going to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA. We just focused on classical text, and it really prepared me for any text you approach and how you do it, and really back to the basics. So I'd say those 2 in particular.
It's interesting too, Jack, that you've spent so much of your training as a theater actor and kind of landed in TV, but that wasn't always the plan.
No, not at all. I wanted to go to Chicago and be in Steppenwolf, and that was the dream. And things didn't work out that way, but that's okay.
They never do. It never goes according to plan. I mean, you get settled in a place, you think something's going to happen a certain way. And with everything that's gone on, you know, it's a perfect example of things not going according to plan. I mean, Gianna, for you, is it the same? Was this kind of the plan for you to get into your field, or was there some precursor to that?
Yeah, I think I always admired people like Diane Sawyer and Lisa Ling, but I think I felt growing up that I wanted to do something that was in that world, but wasn't anything that I had actually seen. It wasn't that I could point to something and say that's exactly it. And so I felt really grateful when I came across Vice. My husband Kyle introduced me to Vice years ago, and I started watching it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is it. This is what I've been trying to explain to people that I want to do. Yeah, I was living in that neighborhood, and you know, I just started kind of pitching to them, and it was after working at ABC and Al Jazeera, and those were good places to kind of establish a journalistic foundation and learn how things work at those bigger companies. Yeah, I ended up just, you know, when you're asking advice to mentors and people who are kind of big in the industry, which I was lucky enough to do, they always said, you just kind of have to do it. You just kind of have to go out and do whatever you want to do. And so my best friend Kelly and I raised money on Kickstarter to tell this story that people kept not buying into. I pitched it at ABC and they were sort of like, no thanks. There's a story about UN peacekeepers in Haiti who were abusing the women and children that they were supposed to be protecting. So it was this really kind of crazy story. No one was buying it. So we raised money on Kickstarter and went down there and didn't know what the hell we were doing, but shot something. And then I just went to Vice and I was like, hey, you guys want to take this? And they were like, holy shit, yeah, this is crazy. And that's when I kind of knew, like, all right, everyone else is red lighting this and Vice is green lighting it. This is probably the place for me.
And now people can look at you, you know, it's an example of like a woman doing that at Vice, which didn't really exist that much before you.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've been with Vice for a while. Your career and journey has kind of mirrored their journey. From being a very cutting edge, and they still are cutting edge, but I mean, I feel like Vice now is like your morning dish. Everything is so cell phone oriented, and you got less people watching the hour news and they're getting their like daily dose of Vice and their briefs. And you guys built a reputation of being neutral, and there's a lot right now, right? And we've seen it with the election. You know, you have networks that just become known for extremely slanted opinion pieces. But with that journey for you, you know, did your style, how did it evolve with Vice?
Yeah, I think it just felt very natural to be there from the start. I worked at a company before that shall go unnamed, but the head of talent there was like sending me to a voice coach to like teach me how to do voice over voice. And I was sort of like, but I just want to talk like I usually talk and voiceover because I think I'm just talking to people, you know? And so I never really got that. And that all felt just kind of wrong. And when I went to Vice, they were like, all right, yeah, here's the mic. If you could just like say the words that you wrote. And I think that is part of what is refreshing for viewers is that when we're on camera, when we're doing voiceover, we're just kind of talking to people like they were in our living room. We're not wearing designer dresses or getting hair and makeup done. It's just kind of like, hey, we think the story is interesting and important. Come with us as we tell it to you.
Jack, I think that also kind of applies to you. I mean, you feel like you've kind of grown into your role. I mean, I know that your breakthrough story in acting is pretty crazy. Can you kind of give us a little lowdown into how that kind of popped off and how you were able to be discovered?
Well, first, just to kind of go off of what Gianna was saying, I feel similarly, G, in growing in like acting wise, because I felt like coming in, you think you're supposed to be something, like you getting a voice coach. It's like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be what I see as like an actor or an actress. And I felt like I was lucky in my career to start doing roles that were much more fitted to like who I am and how I act, and were much like more natural to me. And I think that has a lot to do with the people on top that I got to work with, the directors and writers. But starting out, Mike, just to answer your question, I had sort of a lucky break. I was in a college classroom. It was a screenwriting class. So I was just there reading the script, and these producers, Jim and Lynn Kauf, were just giving advice on the script. And they had been looking for this role of Trouble for, I don't know, months and months and months, and had auditioned, you know, in New York and Chicago and LA, and couldn't find the right person. And so they said, why don't you guys just put yourselves on tape? There were like 4 of us for fun. I was like, okay. That was Saturday morning. We put ourselves on tape, and by Sunday I was like on a flight to LA.
I think that you forgot a detail about where you were, what time it was when you got that call at Michigan.
Yeah, so I was at like a sorority party, a date party, and I had had a couple drinks, and I got a call, which I was not expecting. Obviously, I was like, whatever, this tape is going to go. It's not going to be a day turnaround. And I remember like attempting to be very professional because I thought that was the way to like accept this call.
Mm-hmm.
So they were expecting me to be like, oh my God, this is my dream come true. Thank you so much. And what they were getting was like, I really appreciate this opportunity. I will definitely consider it. They were like, book a flight. I was like, okay, great. Thank you. And then, we were off.
Jackie, you were talking about how you felt natural, that this part was tailored to you as much as you were tailored to it. And I think, when you think of some of the biggest actors, the De Niros or the Denzels or, the Susan Sarandons and all the famous actors they're themselves almost in every movie, but it's a different version. They channel different things, but there's always that framework of them. And I mean, I think for you, in Grimm and also in the L Word, for me watching, it was so interesting because I'm like, that's Jackie, but you're channeling these different roles. And is that a thing that's a theater thing, coming from that theater background? And like, how do you tap into things that are not part of you and mix them with things that are part of your natural DNA?
I think with some actors, it's like, Meryl Streep is like Margaret Thatcher. There's not that much Meryl Streep in there, but in some of her other roles, there is. And when you're playing something close to yourself, and I think when you're also like younger and you're not playing like historical figures or stuff like that, I definitely think that it's just a version of you in, different circumstances and having had, really different experiences. So I'd say definitely you're still working with like the same toolbox when you're doing every single role, even though like the tools you pull out might be different. So I'd say in different roles, there's more of me or less of me, depending on like how close the character is to my experiences.
Gianna, do you notice when Jackie's doing a role and you're like, hey, who is this person?
I mean, that actually is one of my favorite parts about Finley, Jacqueline's character in the L Word. Her humor is Jack's humor. I'm watching it and I'm laughing out loud because it's my sister cracking a joke on TV,
Yeah.
That's not the case with Trouble, for instance. Jack's character on Grimm, the NBC show, I didn't really feel that was you as much as it was Trouble. But Finley, I see the parallels.
Well, I was two really different styles of shows in general. One is a network show, and the writing is a certain way because of it. You're not going off script at all, but I'm lucky to be on the L Word with number one. I've known the showrunner for like 5 years and had done a movie with her and a play with her. And so she really writes for me. They know my voice really well. So I'm able to play around. I'm able to improvise. I'm, able to have fun. And so there's definitely like a lot of me infused in there with some different ticks, I'd say. Definitely different aesthetic style, I'd say, is a little bit different. But
you said you had stepped away from school for that first season of Grimm. Was it weird going from school to being a full-time actress?
Yeah, it was really weird. It was weird to go there in the first place, and it was really weird to go back to school afterwards because you're at school, you're surrounded by people all of the time.
Yeah.
And you're living in a house with all your buddies, and you're in a classroom with all of your, acting class every single day, all the time. And then you move and you're around people on set that you don't know yet. And then you go back to your hotel room and are alone. So it was like a pretty isolating experience, especially because all my friends were going through their senior year and having like an absolute blast. So, and then going back, it was hard because it was, you're sitting in this acting class and
you've already done it.
Yeah, a little bit, but more so like being a senior and graduating acting school, everyone is so nervous because you do not know the next step, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. So it felt like I was just like a physical representation of everybody's fears. And so it was not easy. I think people were happy for me, but it was tough.
You think sounds like there was a lot of anxiety, which
Mhm.
I mean, I can only imagine, going back to school after you've been, doing the damn thing.
Also, I'm sure if you asking you for hooking them up with some parts, I'm sure you got a couple of those.
Everybody knew I didn't have any power, so I think they were smart enough not to do that.
You had a good crew on Grimm, though. You hear these horror stories of like the Hollywood machine just like swallowing young people. And we were like, oh my God, Jack's just like getting thrown on set. This is like big question mark. But with the Kaufs, the show creators, writers, producers, and then just like the actors, they're good people. And so you were supported by a pretty awesome team, which isn't always the case.
Yeah, I was like the little sister to everybody. They really took me under their wing, and still do. I'm still close with everyone. The Kaufs and David Greenwald, who created the show as well, were so good to me. And then you're right, the entire cast was just like really supported me. And I mean, like I showed up and I did not know how to stand on a mark. I didn't know anything. And so they were now knowing a bunch of stuff, I'm like, wow, they were really patient.
Yeah.
It's important to remember when new actors come in now that I'm like, yeah, okay, I remember this.
Obviously, you were doing theater productions, and was that a pretty insane switch of a fluid form of acting, getting to do something from start to finish on a show, and then being like, all right, we're going to film you saying hello 473 times, standing in different spots. How do you deal with that?
I think I didn't really understand what was going on, which I think was kind of an asset. So like, I wasn't like, man, they keep getting me saying this thing over and over again. I was like, oh, okay, I can do it better. I can do it better. I was just like such a newbie and so green that I don't think I knew enough to be able to get in my head. I think that was helpful.
Gee, it's funny you talk about being thrown into the fire. I mean, your first overseas trip into maybe a place that's considered dangerous, is that the same feeling when you broke that first big story that was maybe in a place like that? Were you really nervous?
Man, I don't even know what my first kind of quote dangerous story was. I think it may have been in 2014 going to Iraq. I remember this kind of strange moment when I was transferring, I think in Istanbul to land in Erbil, Iraq. And I remember thinking like, so who's going to be on this flight? Like, who else is flying into Iraq, And you kind of look around with like, it's like, all right, like oil people, some military people, and like a couple journalists, not too packed. I have this belief that places are always scarier before you get there, because once you're there, you have control over the situation to an extent. I thought Iraq was beautiful. Like I could show you pictures of this city I was in where kids are running around, jumping in these beautiful fountains and celebrating birthdays. And it just feels kind of like any other city in that part of the world. But then, we drive a half an hour and you're on the front lines of ISIS. It's like you're seeing the flag and you can hear the airstrikes, and you can like hear the buzzing overhead and you can hear gunfire, and like you got to stay below the sandbags or you could be in trouble. So it can switch really fast. And, you hear so much criticism of the US military and coalition forces overseas killing people, right? Killing millions of people in the last 20 years. But then you hear from families there who say, thank you so much. If coalition forces weren't here, if these airstrikes weren't here, and they're pointing to their kids and they're like, our 5-year-old daughter right there, we're Kurdish. She would have been sold into slavery. They would have been able to come the 30 miles from the front line here. But because we have the airstrikes, they're not allowed to. The nerves go away because you realize that, there are human beings here who live in these circumstances every single day, every day. It sounds kind of crazy, like, wow, you went to Iraq to do this thing. And it's like, yeah, and guess what? There are millions of people living there every day, giving birth, celebrating their kids' birthdays, going out to dinner. And so I think it puts life in perspective. That's for damn sure.
Hey, G, I know that I always thought about when I saw you on those stories about your folks, JT and Mary T, like probably some sleepless nights for them. Were they reaching out a lot? I'm sure checking in on you. And you're probably like telling the cameraman, like the part where the bullet's overhead, like let's, spare my mom the heartache of having to see that,
I gotta say, I give my parents a lot of credit. There's no doubt they're proud of us, but I'm not sure that we, and particularly me, make it easy for them because, eventually they see the piece. So I can tell them whatever I want to tell them. In fact, when I was going to Iraq, I was trying to figure out how I was going to tell them.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you say that you were going to court?
I said, hey, Mom, I'm going to Kurdistan.
Oh, Kurdistan.
Yeah, part of northern Iraq. And she was like, okay, is it safe? And I was like, yeah, totally. It'll be fine. We got like robust security assessment, blah, blah, blah. And then I came back and she was like,
yeah,
what's this piece where you're interviewing these ISIS soldiers? I was like, oh, yeah, remember that trip? I will say there was one moment, there's definitely been more than one moment, but one moment that comes to mind where I had my mom's voice in my head, like, God damn it, she was right. I should have never done this. We were in Mexico in a place called Piedras Negras. It's right south of the border. And that area was taken over by Los Zetas, which is one of the most ruthless cartels in Mexico, specifically like back several years ago. They had taken over this prison. And by the time we had gotten there, they were mostly the prisoners there. You walk into this prison and it's like not like a US prison. Nobody's handcuffed. Everything's outdoors. There are like fires in corners and straight razors just like laying around. And these dudes are like hardcore cartel dudes. And it's funny that we call like terrorists only like the bad guys in the Middle East, but these guys are fucking terrorists. Like there's just like the crimes that they're committing. You cannot have a healthy mental state knowing what they've done to people. So anyway, we walk into this prison. They haven't seen a woman for probably like months or more. My producer is also a woman. And we walk in and we were like, oh my God, this is a little shaky. We're seeing like 5 guards and like 200 of these prisoners. So we walk in and they're all the prisoners are lining up in these like kind of military style lines, and the guards come out and they're making announcements in Spanish. And we start to see some dudes exchanging glances, and they're clearly communicating something. Just to give a visual, they have like all the neck and head tattoos, and like they just look like hard dudes. Elise, and producer, and I were kind of looking at each other like, this is not good. This is not good. Like, what should we just like bail? And those guys start walking out of the lines and they start walking toward us. And all of them have something they're holding something behind their backs. In my head, I'm like,
this is it.
Yeah, that's it.
And to me, Mexico in those areas is scarier than Somalia. It's scarier than Gaza, than Iraq. It's like, I really think Mexico is the scariest place because it's just, you don't have a military surrounding you.
Yeah.
So they start walking toward us and they get to like 15 feet, maybe 20 feet in front of us. And they all stop and they take out instruments. It's the cartel mariachi band. And they for us for like 15 minutes.
Wow.
Dude.
And wow, that was amazing.
Yeah. Oh man.
I knew that story and I was stressed out hearing it.
Yeah.
That messes with the mental for sure.
Not even growing up, hanging out in the Grove or at Mount Dave can prepare you for that one, and there's some rough characters up there too,
G, I had read Dan Harris's book, 10% Happier. And, he talks about how doing that job and going into these places can really affect the mental. How have you been able to keep your mental in check?
So Dan Harris is a great guy. I love that you read that book. He has a lot of it figured out. I try to do stuff just for myself, ranging from meditation to working out to, once I'm home, really separating myself from work and trying to just kind of rehabilitate in natural ways. But I also think I encourage my colleagues to see people and to get therapy. And I haven't done it myself. And I need to, because like you said, there are some serious kind of emotional and mental effects that are easy to ignore, but that I think are important to face.
It's a little bit of a separate conversation, but the NBA has really opened up in having conversations, and people like Kevin Love are coming out talking about how important it is to talk through things. And I'm a huge proponent of it. I've done it before. I definitely suggest for anybody, needing to talk to someone to definitely do it.
I know, Gianna, we were talking a little bit about PTSD in the fire service, and it's been a hot topic in the military. And I think, with some of the stuff for sure that you've seen, it has its effect. I use Mike as an example. Mike rode along with me once on the fire engine. And I think there's a spectrum of like how you react to seeing something traumatic, right? For some people, they can have a sandwich afterwards and say, ha ha, that was, make a joke. some people it really like wrecks them, and we went down on a call at a beach where this woman had been attacked and raped, and that was a really tough call, because when you put a victim to a crime like that and you see them, it has an effect. And the therapy is huge, I think, for everyone, because even if you're walking around like, oh, I'm good, it's there and it'll come out in a different way.
Jack, I know that in Hollywood, the mental thing is huge. What about for you? Is there certain things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis to kind of, with COVID, just in itself, it's been traumatic.
Yeah, I think with COVID, particularly, people are, and even before, people are talking more about mental health. And I think Kevin Love coming out is saving lives, especially in the sports community where, and I think a lot of football players who are talking about suffering from CTE as well, having depression because of that or not, and talking about it, I think is really important. And it's specifically because a lot of kids watch sports and look up to those guys as heroes. So them talking about it and getting it in, that there's no shame in it at an early age, I think is really important. But I think my job's really different than Gianna and Dom's. It's like,
of course,
there's what I was just thinking about is it's so crazy, Dom, that you wake up, go to work, and you have no idea what's going to happen. It's just based on other stuff that's happening out in the world that you have no control over, and you have to go into it and fix a problem and have a solution. And it's just it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and big shout out to Dom. You've seen some gnarly stuff, and I think sometimes when you hear the word firefighter, you don't exactly think that person's going to have to show up to a scene where someone was just brutally killed.
Yeah.
But you're seeing that stuff, and that's, man, shout out to you and to first responders, especially right now when the world is on fire and you guys are having to deal with some real rough stuff. So thank you. Thank you for your service.
We work with great people, and you guys work with great people. I think that keeps us all going. But a lot of these, I think, you talked about, Gianna, about stories in the future and the effects of this year. You could isolate just a few things that have been happening, right? And they would be enough to just unravel a lot of people. Not seeing family, having economic struggles, job insecurities. There's so much stuff. And I think the collective psyche, we all have to accept the mental just beat down from this year. And it's really going to take some collective good vibes, and we'll be able to get out, but it's just nuts.
I think people are realizing what makes them happy now that they're not allowed to do anything. And you just get to think about what you would want to do or what would make you happy that you can't do. So I think people are setting intentions. So hopefully we'll come out of this, at least mentally stronger and, more self-aware and things like that. But I did have an interesting question that my friends asked me the other day. They said, what weird little things or tics do you think you'll develop that you'll take in to pass COVID that are happening now? Are you going to shake hands? Or are you going to, be weird about certain things? Does anybody have any answers, thoughts?
For me, from someone that used to play basketball every day, I'm even questioning whether I want to get back out on a court anymore and play with other people.
Why?
I'm sure soon I will, but it's just you're on a court with 10 guys who come from, different places and aren't being tested. And our folks are taking COVID very serious, and I want to be able to spend time with them more than I want to, go out and play basketball. And we talk about some of the hard decisions that we're having to make. My life has changed so much as a result of COVID. And you talk about setting intentions. This podcast started as a result of my furlough from Cole Haan. So many things have come from this.
Good for you, Mike. So cool you created this. There is some good coming out of this thing.
That's a great question, though. The tics at work, we go to a lot of calls at convalescent hospitals and stuff. And before COVID, I used to just run into these convalescent hospitals where people have crazy illnesses, MRSA, flu, pneumonia, TB, and I would just roll in with nothing, just hey, eating a sandwich, grabbing stuff. And now with COVID, where I'm going in a spacesuit, I'm definitely going to be, I think, a little more conscious on just some of the simple stuff, washing hands, I don't know what we go back to or what things look like, but just being a little more like germ conscious, I think. I'm not worried about me getting sick. I'm just worried about, trying to be more thoughtful of others and getting them sick and that kind of thing. How about you guys though? What are some of the additions to the what you do?
I think I'm gonna awkwardly stare at people's mouths just because like I haven't seen them in a minute.
That's funny. I was actually in a scene the other day, and I like wouldn't step close to the person. Like I was just naturally standing 6 feet away from the person, and they were like, "No, you guys are like in a scene together. Like you can." And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." And still, like every time I went to do it, my natural thing was just to stand that far away from the person.
Have either of you guys picked up any new hobbies or projects during COVID?
Oh yeah, I've been cutting hair. I've been building tables, writing. Like on a more serious note, I guess writing, just because acting was done, and you're sitting there, wanting to be creative. And, my partner Cass and I have started writing some stuff, and it's been so nice to have a creative outlet, and also feel like you're producing something that like is helpful.
Do we see a Toboni Sisters production in the future? Because, I think that would be dope.
We talked about it.
I would love to see some recreated like correspondence, right? I mean, because you think of the visual of like Jack's on set shooting some, Gianna's in the middle of the desert running away from some, I don't know, a fighter jet that's dropping bombs on them, and it's just like, the tech. What's the text convo look like that? Like, oh man, I'm just. I'm chilling with this person. I just bumped into so-and-so on the movie set, and it's like, oh, that's cool. We just outran like, gunfire. Okay, I'll see you at dinner for Christmas. Is Paul coming, or is he doing like, he busy with the scouting stuff? Like, I don't know. Okay, hey, I gotta go. Shooting has started again. You mean shooting like the camera? No, I mean like they're shooting at us. And we got, like that would be gold.
It would be really good, actually. I feel like something's brewing in here.
It's brewing, dog.
I like it.
G, what about you?
I've been fishing.
Fishing.
Sick.
Yeah, starting like in June. Actually, Kyle, my husband, was like, all right, we need hobbies. Let's go. We're moving to California from New York. We're going to be outside more. He started swimming in the bay, and I started fishing. When I get home without fish, usually, Kyle's always reminded, it's not always about catching a fish. And that's kind of my philosophy. It's like just being out there in the bay, totally alone, throwing your line in, seals coming up, just like
checking in.
Yeah. Seriously, though, it's like a really spiritual, meditative experience to have a wild animal that weighs as much as you swim right up and make eye contact and be swimming around and just hanging with you. And then when you do catch that fish, it's like, oh my God, yes! Better than Christmas morning. It feels so good.
You guys were talking about hobbies. It gave me a flashback to the time. Did we not all go surfing once at sunset? I know Jackie was there. Gianna, I think you might have been there too.
This is early. I think I was like in high school or something.
Yes. When you were talking about the water, Gianna, and fishing, I just remembered this time we went surfing.
Have you been surfing lately?
It's funny you should ask. I have been surfing a lot, but the outdoors has been huge just because it's such a opposite of like the lab COVID environment with the mask, the gloves. I think it's become important for a lot of people.
We're all lucky to live in California.
Yeah. It's crazy you say that, because I feel like, especially in San Francisco, there's a lot of hate against California right now. And people are talking about moving to Austin, and a lot of the tech is leaving San Francisco. And it's just crazy for me to see a lot of these companies make their bones in the city and then leave when the going gets tough. I really hope San Francisco kind of has I think it's going to be big. Hopefully a little bit more flavor comes back to the city. It becomes less techy and we get some more gold, because the city's great. Like you said, the Bay, I mean, there's just so much greatness surrounding the city. So,
Big Mike, I think that's well said. Like maybe that's what this city needed, was like a little shake up, for people to leave and for like, the vibes to come back.
The ride or dies.
I started skating again, with COVID starting. So I used to be a big time skateboarder when I was younger, loved doing it. I was out of my mind, ollie in, stair sets. with the courts closing, I needed to do something where I could have that mental battle with myself. I like the falls. I like getting hit, getting back up, trying to do the trick again. So it's fun. It's a fun little community.
Are the places like easier to skate now that there's not any people?
Pier 28 is a place where I go skate a lot, and it was built as like a bus landing. There's no buses going there anymore, so no one's there. I roll in there. The skaters have adopted it. You got the backdrop of the bay and Alcatraz in the background. Like G said, it's just a way to kind of just go out there, and whether it's working on yourself or doing tricks, it's, I have a lot of fun doing it.
I want to dive into something real quick, and I know we're not going to be able to tackle all the stories, but Gianna, I wanted to talk. I was rewatching the Dozier story. Just a fascinating character. When you do a story like that with Dozier and you're in constant conversation and you're really getting into this person's, facing a death sentence, and you absorb that has to be a tiring thing. It seems like that definitely was a story that you dedicated a huge amount of time to, gave a lot of yourself to that. Any new thoughts on that story or things looking back, talking about just what you were going through during that?
Yeah. So this wasn't the intention at the start, but I ended up becoming really close to this guy named Scott Dozier, who was on death row. He had been convicted of killing 2 people in drug deals. I wanted to do a story on the death penalty because there was a national conversation happening at the time around the drugs that were being used, lethal injection drugs, being used to kill people on death row. And there was a massive shortage of these drugs. And in most states, you can't legally kill someone on death row any other way. So it was like a big problem for these states. They didn't have a way to carry out the death penalty, even though it continued to be legal in their state. So I just saw that this guy had his execution scheduled. So I wrote him a letter in prison, and he called me the next day. And I pick up the phone, and before he even really introduces himself, he's like, here's the deal with Vice. You guys are fucking sellouts now. You guys were cool back in the day. You guys were edgy. You had the cool shit, the magazine. I subscribed. And now, I don't know, you're kind of mainstream. So just want to let you know, that's my feedback on Vice. And I was like, all right, bro. I'm not hating on your feedback. Anyway, are you ready to die? This guy was supposed to be put to death in, I think, 30 days from the time that we talked, maybe less. And then his execution was stayed. And it was the beginning of basically a 2-year relationship where we would talk on average 3 times a week. And he ended up confiding in me in some of the most intimate details of his life. And I have to say, I ended up really liking the guy. For me, it really made me question, are all people in prison bad? I think there are these big moral questions that, for that one, I think we can all agree that no. But people on death row, for instance, or if you've murdered someone, does that unequivocally make you a bad person? I had questions about who this guy was, even after getting to know him really well and meeting his family, meeting his girlfriend, and meeting his kids, going to his funeral. Was he a sociopath, or was he a guy who got mixed up in a drug scene and was high on meth and ended up killing people? I wonder if he was released, would he have been able to be a contributing member of society? I don't know. He was an incredible artist. He had really strong relationships with his family. He was just one of those guys who a movie should be made about him. He's fascinating guy, perfectly articulate, brilliant guy. What ended up happening was I think it was January 2018, he called me, and I think January 1st he called me. January 2nd he called me. We talked January 3rd, not January 4th, January 5th, he killed himself. Ugh. And when you tell someone, obviously all the calls from prison are monitored and recorded. And they had put him on suicide watch, which I believe really drove him to become suicidal. I think that is the reason that he killed himself. He couldn't bear the thought of being on suicide watch anymore. I mean, it's hardcore isolation. What I didn't realize was that I was talking to him on the days when he had attempted suicide. And I know that now from his cellmate. So he had been attempting to hang himself. And I mean, this is brutal, but this is just life. And his body was having these visceral reactions that was waking him up. And then he would stop and he would pull the sheet down. And then on January 5th, I think he actually succeeded in doing it. But that made me sad because he was not a suicidal person. And he had these robust relationships in his life, but he just said, I would rather be dead than live like this any longer. I realize in hindsight, he was trying to tell me that that's what he was doing. He was trying to say goodbye on those phone calls. But I think I was distracted just by life, that I wasn't really understanding that. He was trying to tell me without guards knowing that. That's what he was saying. I've thought a lot about those conversations and how it's so important to really be listening when someone is talking to you. I was listening, I was responding, we were having conversation, but I wasn't really listening, or else I would have known what was coming.
Wow. My God.
You probably came into that with opinions on the death penalty. It's been a hot topic with sweeping changes, and it's been, in the media. How did that story change your view on the death penalty?
Man, it is such a good question. And I'm not supposed to say how I feel about these things, just being a journalist, but I'll say this. It, more than the death penalty being moral or immoral, for me, it brought up a really unexpected question, which is this euthanasia idea. Should people be able to decide to die if they want to die? Because Scott Dozier wanted to die, right? He was like the anomaly. Most people on death row are trying to get appeals and trying to get off death row, trying to not die. This guy was like, I want to die. And the state couldn't find a way to kill him. And he was kind of calling bullshit on their sentence. He's like, you say that you want to put me to death. You're not putting me to death. You don't know how to. They couldn't get access to the drugs. So for me, it was more, the thing that switched in my brain was, should, death with dignity or euthanasia, should people be able to opt to die if they're in prison or on death row? I think it's a really important question. And should states be able to have legal death penalty if they don't have a way to carry out that sentence?
The state's the only one that has the monopoly on murder, right? I mean, they can kill other people abroad in defense of the country. They can kill you for certain crimes. And then to see that and look at kind of the challenges, which I think he exposed a lot, that, hey, if you're going to take on this like godly act of saying, I can kill people, you're the government, you better have your shit together. It's pretty heavy duty when you see that kind of the state fumbling this. And I get it. He killed or, potentially killed someone, but still to put someone else through that and have the anguish of like, all right, am I going to die today? Am I not going to die today? And then the state's kind of going through this bureaucratic like stuff. Can we get the meds? It's like, whoa, maybe the state's not responsible enough to be able to determine to kill people. It's crazy.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Gianna, that's because the pharmaceutical companies did not want to be attached to drugs that were killing people, so they weren't giving the state the right to buy them, correct?
That's a great point. So yes, companies like Pfizer don't want to be known as the company that make the death drug. They want to be known as the companies that create the COVID vaccine.
Right.
And so they stopped allowing states to buy these drugs, but there's this whole middle market where basically middlemen companies that can gain access to these drugs that are used for other things, right? Fentanyl. And they will then
sell it to the government.
Exactly.
What's interesting about that just quickly is that like these companies are making drugs that created the opioid epidemic that probably put a lot of these guys in prison, and they aren't having, the dignity if they do want to die to do it with these drugs.
And the companies aren't being held accountable.
Now they are starting to be, but yeah, you're right. They've gotten away with it for a long time.
I mean, it's a chip.
Yeah.
They lost some money in a suit, but in the bigger picture, the amount of people who've died, some people should have some handcuffs on, and people should be going to jail.
I agree with you.
I read this book called American Kingpin, and the author's name is Nick Bilton, and it follows Ross Ulbricht, who founded the Silk Road. Here's a guy that got sentenced to life in prison for creating a website where you could get any drug in the world. And we talk about Pfizer has these drugs and they're getting huge lucrative contracts and maybe in some cases great recognition. And this guy just made these drugs available on this site. And so I won't get into the book, but it's interesting, really fascinating about the whole libertarian view of like, again, circling back to like the government can do this and this, but you can't. The government can kill people. They can approve drugs that will get you killed, but you can't go to a site and get that. It's a good read. I think you guys would like that. Hey, another thing I wanted to jump into, we talked earlier about stuff where things have kind of crossed paths for you guys. And I know Gianna was telling me a story about being on the run with two Saudi sisters that were fleeing persecution. And in a moment of downtime at a safe house, one of them coming out to her and mentioning that the L word had inspired her and been a huge point of inspiration. Jackie, been heavy on the LGBTQ rights and the whole movement. That seems like a great intersection and something you guys are both passionate about, have done a tremendous amount of work, are huge leaders in that field. And can you guys get into some of the work you guys have both done and how that work has intersected with each other in both your fields?
I'll just quickly on the Saudi story. That was such a moving experience for me because here are two girls who felt that they could be killed at any moment when they had just escaped Saudi Arabia, which has guardianship laws, which being gay is punishable by death. You are in many cases forced to marry men 50 years older than you. If they say they want to have sex, you have to have sex. It's just, you can't leave the house without their permission. I mean, it's Handmaid's Tale. Two girls, super young sisters, they escape. We met them in Istanbul as they were still escaping the Saudi government intelligence officers who had, by the way, just killed Jamal Khashoggi in the consulate in that city. Their dad was there trying to track them down. I mean, it was scary. It was a scary few weeks. And so we had these late night conversations, 3 a.m. And, eventually the older sister, ended up telling me I'm gay and I want to tell you about my girlfriend. And they were talking about how they can get access to Netflix and YouTube and Showtime. And so she said, "Oh, have you seen the L Word? I love the L Word." And I was sort of like, oh my God. And she's like, "Yeah, the L Word is the only place that I began to understand that it's possible to have a healthy, safe relationship with my partner." And for me, I was just like, that is so incredible because we think about TV, entertainment, scripted shows, the L Word as entertainment. And it's so much more than that when it's a show like the L Word. And I am just so proud of my sister because even if you come from an accepting family, a liberal community and city, it's still hard to come out. It's still a very brave thing to come out. Mm-hmm. And my sister did that. And that's important for her in her life and being true to who she is. But it's also important for all the people who look up to her as a high profile person, because to them, it sends a message, I can do this too. And in many parts of the country and of course the world, that's a scary thing and a dangerous thing for people. So it's important that people like Jacqueline are brave enough to stand up and say, this is who I am. And then the second part I was just going to say is, Jacqueline could be posting gorgeous pictures of herself on vacation and her great life and blah, blah, blah. But most of the time, she is giving other people a voice. Yeah. She's standing up for such an important cause that she feels so strongly about, posting about trans women of color who are disproportionately killed just because of who they are. Those are people in the most marginalized communities in our country who really would not have a voice if it wasn't for Jacqueline and other advocates like her. So I just want to say I'm really proud of you, Jack.
Me too, Jack.
Me too, Jack.
Oh, you guys are going to make me cry. That's really nice. Thank you, Gianna, for saying all that. Yeah, I think it is difficult to come out no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, even in, growing up in a sanctuary city with a really supportive family. And it took me a long time to get there, to be comfortable with myself and with who I was in order to come to people I love and come out. So thank you for saying that. I mean, watching that Saudi story was pretty incredible just because it felt so close to home, even though these people were from so far away. I grew up at 13 watching the original L Word, feeling the same way as this young girl and not able to understand it or express it or what have you. So seeing that story, I think, was really important for me to see, and your work on trans lives. I'm really fortunate to be on a show and to play characters that bring people from the community to me and people that may resonate with my character or other characters in the show. And so it's been really nice to just have a supportive community and being able to reach those ears and offer some support.
Someone gifted you the first L word. Isn't that this? What's the story behind that?
Oh yeah.
I read somewhere that someone gifted you that and basically said, you'll understand it someday or something like that.
Yeah, it's funny. The only out girl at SI at my high school was Christina Vlahos, and we were sophomores in high school, and she gave me a birthday gift, and I was like, wow, this is so nice. You did not have to do this. And I opened it, and it was like season 1 box set, which was not cheap at the time. And she was like, just until you figure it out. And I was like, I just got like so red and flushed and not able to like compute what was happening. Years later, I found myself in like the audition room with this cast of characters that created the show. And it was just like a crazy moment. And I told that story in my audition, and it was pretty funny.
Have you reached out to her?
Yeah, totally. We messaged on Instagram a little bit.
We haven't gone too in depth into your role in the L Word, and have you had a lot of fun doing that role, and what's kind of been your favorite thing, besides it being kind of similar to who you are about playing the role?
Well, a couple things. It's kind of amazing to be a fan of a show and then to be able to do it. It's like, a dream come true. So I'll start there. And then being able to work for someone like my showrunner, Marja Lewis-Ryan, who's so incredible and I really trust. And I feel very like heard and seen and taken care of. And it feels like more collaborative, I'd say, than other sets. I don't feel just like a set piece or anything like that, which can happen with, a director that's focused more on camera than they are with acting or whatever it is. So I'd say I feel really great. And also my cast is amazing. I feel like I'm around people from different backgrounds and that all bring something to the table, and it's really fun to play with them. And then the last thing I'd say, I'm fortunate to play a character that's dealing with some heavy stuff, but with a lot of levity. So I'm just happy to be able to play different levels of things and feel really challenged, but also have fun every time I go to work.
Just such a smart show. Your character is like off the charts, and talking about that Saudi girl, like it's such a powerful show because the L Word is showing people not defined by their sexuality, but they have, it shows them in their element and they're killing it. And it has such a good feel of the show. And for a young person to see that, that's the world. It's not how it's being portrayed to me by like, all right, this person is this way, and I only get to see that 1,000 times over in every piece of media. It's just an amazing show. Happy it came back, and just awesome for sure. Season 2, I'm hearing. Can we get any? I know you can't talk,
Give us the MO. I got a nice senora slice for you if you can give us a lowdown.
Give us a little something,
Oh, well, it's hard because there's like a major cliffhanger that happens at the end of season 1. So I can't really tell you anything without spoiling like the biggest reveal. So I can't tell you anything, but
Damn.
We're having a lot of fun, and it's going to be a little bit different stylistically. I think we're changing it up a little bit. The scripts are a little bit different. And the only thing I'll say is I feel like we've really found our groove. Feels like all the characters doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And it's really fun.
This question is for both of you. Very strong, powerful, outspoken women. Do you guys feel that the Hollywood and the media is supportive of your outspokenness?
I would say every month or so, someone will say, what era would you want to live in? Wouldn't it be cool to like live in the 20s or like the 1400s? Like, nope.
Yeah.
Right now is just great.
Right.
So look, I think we're not there yet, but we sure as hell are in a better place than we ever have been. I feel supported, but I'm also reminded often, when doing stories on the Saudi girls, or a couple years ago, I was in Bangladesh and asked to interview the head of this Islamist group, and he said, I refuse to be interviewed by a woman. So we had to send a male fixer in and put me on speakerphone, and I basically asked a question, and then he asked the question. So I'm still dealing with shit like that, but overall, yeah, this is a great time to be a woman. Like, this is a great time to be a woman. And even when crushing things happen, like watching Hillary Clinton run for president and seeing everything she had to deal with, that's okay, because that's progress. right? She was, presidential candidate.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal. So we're getting there. We're not there, but we're getting there.
Jack, what about for you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm really fortunate, again, to be on the show I'm on. I was saying the other day to somebody, I was like, what am I going to do when I go on to another set? It's like all of my bosses are women, which just like, I don't know, is incredibly comforting. And, I want to do other things than act. And so it's really important and has been really nice for me to see people in positions of power that are women.
I will say my bosses are women also. The executive producers are women. And I think just shout out to the generations before us, our moms.
Mary T.
Shout out what women in the boomer generation and before them had to deal with, we no longer have to deal with because they fought through that. So we owe a lot to them. That's for damn sure.
Yep, 100%.
Dom, any last questions before we go into the lightning round with these wonderful ladies?
No, I'm nervous.
Let's get this started, okay? And we have a belt being made right now. So if you win, we'll probably send the belt. It's a bridge to bridge undisputed champion belt. So
my anxiety levels are getting there.
these are broken down like a career. So it's going to be pilot season / local paper opinion piece. Then we're going network recurring role / weekly column. Academy Award Pulitzer Prize, and then we're going Hollywood Star Walk of Fame. Okay, so first question in the category of pilot season. So you find yourself a little thirsty and you decide that you want a Scorpion Bowl. At which bar would you acquire this alcoholic drink?
Oh.
And for a bonus, in what district?
It's on, I'm pretty sure it's Geary.
Yes, correct.
Bingo.
It's called... this is I'm discussing.
Yeah, you guys are having discussions.
Is it Trader Vic's?
Oh, Trader Vic's.
Or no, I could be fucking that up.
Well, I was thinking the Mai Tai place in Chinatown, so I don't think that's correct. So let's cross that.
That's definitely wrong. Definitely wrong.
No, I know. I didn't guess it. It's crossing off the list.
Process of elimination is how we're going to get there. Do we have a time limit?
No. You were good on Gary Street.
Trader Sam's is correct.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Let's
Bam.
go. Okay.
You hooked it up there.
Y'all fools barely got out of the Richmond district. Barely.
She's a Trader Vic's, dude.
Y'all came into the Richmond district shaky. You jumped on the 38 Geary and barely got to Park Presidio to catch the 28 home. Barely.
Now you're hanging with Martin right now on the border of the Richmond district. So
Love it.
I definitely would have heard the end of it from Martin if we did not get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is network recurring role. You guys, pilot season's done. You're starting to gain hype. So this is a journalist question, and famous Bay Area journalist wrote for the Chronicle who said with a quote, "If I do go to heaven, I'm going to do what every San Franciscan does who goes to heaven. Look around and say, it ain't bad, but it ain't San Francisco." This is a very famous Bay Area journalist, writer, wrote for the Chronicle for many, many, many years.
damn.
Great quote.
That is the quote of the century.
She's looking it up on Google right now.
Yeah. Gianna's like, quote of the century.
Mike M. Tizzle definitely is going to send G a text message if she doesn't get this.
We've never done this before. I will allow a text to Mike.
Or even a phone call.
I will allow one phone call. Yeah, you can phone a friend, and because this is a family episode special, we will allow this.
All right. Let me go call.
Jackie.
Paul, very important question, okay? You are live. You're on speakerphone. This is Phone a Friend on a live podcast with Dom and Mike and Gianna. There's a trivia question. Can Dom read out the trivia question to you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Dom, go ahead.
Okay, famous journalist, San Francisco Chronicle, wrote for many years and had the quote that said, "If I do go to heaven, I'm going to do what every San Franciscan does who goes to heaven. I'm going to look around and say, it ain't bad, but it ain't San Francisco."
I think I'm like 80% sure here. I'm going to go with Herb Cain.
Herb Cain.
Bing,
Wow.
nailed it. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
family.
you.
I can't believe he got that. Paul, thank you
All
so
right,
much,
yeah.
man.
Okay, you guys are now at Academy Award Pulitzer Prize. Other than Jackie, Who is the second most famous alumni to come out of San Francisco's ACT acting school where he got his master's?
He got his master's. It's Nicolas Cage.
Wait, you want me? Let me finish before you say. He was named by NY Times as the greatest actor of the 21st century so far. The greatest actor of
You
the 21st
guys almost
century.
lost it.
I know.
Lost it.
Dom, do you have a quote for them?
Okay, I will tell you this. This person did play a role with a kidnapping that happened in Mexico where he told one of the perpetrators, "I wish you had more time." And then he walked away.
Okay, Jack, let's just start throwing them out.
Hold on. Everybody hold on. So the only two people that I know that graduated ACT's master program that are famous are Winona Ryder and Nicolas Cage. So let me just say that, first of all. Number two, the kidnapping in Mexico gives me Man on Fire vibes, which makes me think Denzel.
Bingo.
But really got it, Denzel.
We're going to give this.
Wow. We're really bending the rules.
I only got it because of the Mexico kidnapping.
We're showing
with
some
Man on
heavy family love here. And it's only because I know the last question is so difficult that it's almost impossible. Last question. This is the championship. You take the belt. You're the champ probably for a long time because you see how hard questions are. The actress named Natalie Wood, there was recently a documentary on her.
Yeah.
She was born in San Francisco and she was married to Robert Wagner. Now, she fell off a boat and died, supposedly. And Robert Wagner was on the boat, and there was another famous Hollywood actor on the boat who is known for being a very, very weird guy.
Oh, I think it's Christopher Walken. It was in Catalina.
You guys got it. That's it, dude. That's it. That's it. You guys have it. The belt. The Toboni sisters have the belt. Kareem, if you're going to listen to this, and we'll make him listen.
3 phone calls they got.
Hard hitter. I'm sorry, my man.
Handicap.
You guys killed it. Those are tough. Those are really, really tough. I mean, Natalie Wood died in 1981, but you guys killed it. And unless you guys want to add anything, I can't wait to see what you guys do, the projects and Vice and on Showtime and L Word season 2. Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We know you're really busy, but we really appreciate you guys coming on the Bridge to Bridge podcast.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Keep it up. You guys are killing it.
Another good episode in the books. We encourage you to check out our guest on the Showtime network. Don't forget you can watch Jacqueline on L Word Generation Q and Gianna on Vice News. A big thanks to both sisters for coming on the Bridge to Bridge podcast. If you like this episode, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Bridge to Bridge SF. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.